Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to ScatterYarn podcast, where we try to unpack how society subtly influences our behavior. I'm your guy, Dr. Toves. Hope you're having a beautiful and fantastic day. In this episode, we are continuing to unpack Nelson's statement of if you're born a man, you're already minus one. We're trying to look at different elements of that statement. We've done two previous episodes. I'm sure you guys have been following. In the first episode of the mini series, we looked at social and societal financial expectations on men. And in the previous episode, we looked at we talked about how society is not well equipped to support men emotionally when they break down or when they're going through something and going through a tough time. But today, we are asking whether men are only as good as what they earn, and what does that mean for self-worth and identity and relationship. And joined by my very good friend Dr. Morris. How are you feeling today, Dr. Morris, that likes to live life with no worries, sir? How are you doing?
So far so good. Doing very well. Not much going on this period. It's quite like a nice quiet season, so holiday time, and so it is all right. Not too bad.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, you're right. Not much going on, but at the same time, for me, it's very, very busy. It's been busy. I wish I could relax a bit, but they say you rest when you die. But I don't subscribe to that. But that's what they say for men. Anyways, man.
I don't know if it's a manly man thing, but I have that same philosophy as well. I'm like,
Mhm.
you rest when the work is done. That's how I put it. Not when
Mm.
no not when you die, but when the work is done. So if
Okay.
I start up a project, until I finish it, I don't rest. I can stay up late, do some days I will stay like 2, 3 nights sleepless until I get that project successfully completed. That's just my own policy. So
But knowing you have multiple projects, so I guess you're never going to be done.
uh,
But anyways, let's get into it, man. Let's scatter the yarns of how men are valued either by themselves or other people. And also we might touch on the idea of high value men. All right.
okay.
Quick yes or no. Am I right to assume that we agree that the expectation of men to provide is both cultural and societal? Quick yes or no. Do you agree or do you disagree?
Cultural or societal? Yes, yes, I would say so. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And then I think that as well. And to those who might be like, huh, why are you saying that? Well, in the 1800s, even the colonial era or industrialization era, the idea that men providers was tied to economics, owning land, being the breadwinner, farming, all of those stuff. Even in many African and global cultures as well, they assign the status of men based on provision, either by animals, cows, cash, or providing for the household. Even in religious settings as well, men are seen as the head of the house, and sometimes it's tied to financial responsibility. And in capitalism, modern capitalism, worth or value is tied to the quality or quantity of output. And men have absorbed all of these values or worth more than the other gender. But the twist is, as Sheon tried to articulate in the previous episode, that the world has changed and the world is changing. Women are now earning more than ever, So relationship is not just one person; it's more like two people bringing income together. Generally speaking, and also technology has changed the way we work. People work from home now. You don't have to go and do construction all the time or farm all the time. There are different ways to make money. So, my first question is, Dr. Morris, why do you think people are still judging men by the playbook of the 1800s and 1900s? Eh?
Um, why are they judging me by the playbook of the past periods?
Yeah, that basically meant the value of a man being tied to financial responsibility and things like that.
There's a number of reasons that comes to mind, but um, one of the reason I would say is because it's it's becoming it is the norm, right? It's what you grew up with. It's what you're taught
Mhm.
from an early stage. You have to be self-sufficient. You have to be you know reliant on yourself. You have to, so with that sort of notion, it's also being projected towards other men as well. So if you see somebody that is struggling for themselves, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, it's expected. You're a man, you have to do that. Right. So
Mhm.
that has then created an endless cycle of a situation whereby a lot of people feel like if they are not providing
Mhm.
some form of value in terms of, whether it's financial, whether it's, so it makes
Exactly.
them
Whether it's financial or which means the other one is quite tough to come
yeah,
up with.
is that one, the other one is still there, but
Yes.
definitely the financial aspect is what,
Mhm.
a lot of people, tend to gauge their, I don't know. I
Manhood.
don't. I don't want to say because again, it relates more also to the state of mind, of the person. A lot of the times, if a man is not able to provide for not just those around them, even themselves financially, they
Yeah.
feel less of a human, And I don't think that's the same for women. So
Hmm.
that then brings, so it's apart from the societal, you know, uh, dependence on men to and or expectation for men to be that way, the men themselves expect that from them, from themselves. So it
Yeah.
just creates an endless cycle of it just keeps happening. So I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah, no,
that's what
I agree with you. I agree with you because if you ask most men, like what makes them a man, I'm sure the answers won't be kindness or compassion or creativity. They'll be saying things like, I provide, I take care of my family, I hustle. That sounds noble and it is noble, but the trap is sometimes, like you said, it becomes a cycle and the entire self worth tends to be
yeah.
tied to doing and providing and solving. In the previous episode as well, Nelson was saying men as a man he's solution oriented, right? So then the question is what happens when you can no longer do those things? What about if you can no longer provide? Let's say you lost your job or something, then there's that feeling that a lot of men experience that it's not just about being broke now, it's about also being broken mentally, emotionally. It's like they failed at manhood because their wallet got lighter. So I'll give you an example. There is one of my friend. I'm going to call him Tunde, and this Tunde is different from the Tunde of the previous episode. In case you listened,
Okay.
um, Tunde had a good job, a great car, a very very solid man's man. He provides for his family, he protects, he performs, like hustle and does every manly role ever. Right. Then one day he got laid off and um basically the way he told me that he felt like he was like one moment he felt like he was the man and the next he was just Tunde. He started also noticing that after a while some friends stopped asking him to hang out. His girlfriend's tone at the time changed. Her love did not disappear, but he felt that our
Yeah, he
respect
did.
was a little bit shakier, you know. Now, Tunde was not broke. He was just broken, not because of the job loss, but because he felt that without the job, without the paycheck, he wasn't really a man anymore. He began to doubt himself. He even asked me that whether his partner's love was real or it was just a transaction, things like that. And that made me realize that men aren't just afraid of poverty, right? People are afraid of poverty, but they're not just afraid of poverty, but they're also afraid of irrelevance, afraid of being a man that no one sees or respects because they don't have the capacity to provide or give when people ask them for money. I don't know if you, Morris, have experienced something similar or know someone that's experienced something similar to this situation.
Um. Hmm. Well, we've all heard the stories of couples that the at one point in time everything was going well for the man, you know, and all of a sudden something just happens, maybe it's an illness, an accident, and the man isn't able to provide the way he used to for the family. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden there start to be that shift in terms of not just the the partners, but everyone around them,
Yeah.
start to act a certain ways. It feels more like if you're not providing that, financial value, you're
Hmm.
worth less as a human being. So,
Yeah.
and it's very common, and I think it's also part of the way we society kind of describes being a man. So when we think
Mm.
about what being a man actually means, a lot of the times you're we're looking at things like being courageous, being resilient, being,
Hmm.
smart, being so, and that alone has created a situation whereby it's now leading to these harmful stereotypes that as a man, if you
Mm.
don't, it shows that you're less in control. And there's this thing that has to do with, being in control, whether it's in terms of your finances, in terms of your careers,
Yeah.
you have to be in control in a way. And
Mhm.
for me, that alone, it's leaning towards that toxic masculinity.
Mm.
But the good part about it is that, again, just like you alluded to earlier, the dynamics are starting to change. Nowadays, the roles in the home and in the workplace is starting to change.
Mm.
And you're now seeing more emphasis on having this work-life balance between, and also being more involved. But back then, it wasn't so much. But
Yeah.
we're starting to see that shift in today's
In
environment,
society.
which is good. You know.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know if you've heard or seen this somewhere that a man is only respected at his last paycheck. I read it once and I was like, that's deep. And just like some people do in situations that they heard when they hear deep things, I had a surface level thinking about it, right? And one of my many conclusions was that we don't just work for money. Sometimes it seems like we work to matter, but in reality, even based on conversations with people that I've worked with in the past and men that I still work with, you often notice that sometimes when people are working, even though they are working, they still do not feel like valuable. They don't think that they are doing enough. They feel like they're not making enough to meet either their own expectation or impress some element of society expectation. That can be family, friends, neighbors, colleagues, or just keeping up with the Joneses. So my question is why to you, Dr. Morris, and to everyone listening, if you can put in the comment section below, or if there's a comment section on Spotify, Apple Podcast, etc. Why do you think men who are doing okay still feel like they are not doing enough? There's some men, not every man, obviously, but there's some men who they are working, but based on their own expectation, they don't think they have blown. They don't think they've made it, and sometimes they're comparing themselves to someone else. Why do you think that is?
I think that's the problem.
Mm.
They have this um, baseline idea of what they no, if it doesn't even have to be society, but what you expect from yourself, right? Um, and sometimes it stems from a place whereby people make unrealistic projections. It's like at 35 or at 40, I would have my own house. I would have at least one or two cars. I should be able to comfortably afford, the basic necessities and so on, right?
Yeah.
And you know, and a lot of those projections are not based on, reality. It's based on wishful thinking.
Hmm.
Sometimes it is, but now the problem then comes when you are not able to meet your own expectation. We're not even putting the burden of, society and the environment. So when you can't even meet the expectation that you've set for yourself, then it starts to you start to then, I don't know, fall into that trap of I'm not enough. But
Mm.
y- this is where I would say the expectations we set for ourselves has to be um,
Realistic.
realistic. Yeah, it has to be
Hmm.
very realistic. It and not just realistic, but it should also be pessimistic as well, right? Because a
In
lot
what
of the
sense? Yeah.
times, because I remember in finance, there's one when you're appraising projects, right? We have a concept whereby you make projections, you have realistic,
Mm-hmm.
optimistic, and pessimistic projections, right? The
Mm.
baseline would be okay, realistically, I can achieve this in a number of years, but you also have to be pessimistic because sometimes what you may think would happen would never happen, and
Yeah, things may
things
not
may
work out the way you
exactly.
expect
So
it. Yeah.
this is where those projections have to account for pessimism, so you have to
Hmm.
also be prepared to accept the fact that you're going to fall short of whatever expectations you've set for yourselves. And
Yeah.
I think the moment we accept that, we allow ourselves a little bit of breathing space to say that okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be all perfect, it doesn't have to be the way we think it would be. We should be willing
Yeah.
to accept that things might go bad, and I think when people accept that, they would be able to be more at peace with themselves to say that okay, it's fair enough. But in a situation whereby none of that was thought of, you're just having this wishful thinking and
Yeah.
optimistic goals and target, then it
Mm.
might pose a problem if it doesn't
Okay.
turn out to be that way. So I think.
Right. So basically, you've come from the angle of where people put expectation on themselves. But let me tell you about another of my friend. I'll call him Josh.
Okay.
Okay. And this Josh is different from the Josh of the previous episode.
Okay.
Now, Josh works as a sales assistant. He makes about 30K a year. He's able to pounds. He's able to pay his rent, takes care of his girlfriend, contributes to the house. And this silly Josh one day was just watching YouTube content, and then he came on, scrolled too far and got across a page of a late YouTuber's content on high value men. And if you watch something on one of the social media platforms, your algorithm on every other platform will
Oh
start
yeah.
picking up. Yeah. So all of his algorithms started showing him more podcasts that make it seem like real men fly business class, real men never split the bill, real men take care of the family, real men this, that. And then he began to notice as well that his own girlfriend started comparing him to one of his friend's fiance who works in finance and makes about 120K. Now, Josh, because of everything that he's soaking in and his fiance's subtle jabs, began to lose confidence. His confidence as a man started shrinking, not because he's lazy, but all of a sudden he didn't feel like he's the best version of himself. He feels that he's no longer impressive, right? I know that it's not wrong for a woman to want financial security, but is it fair to reduce a man to his tax bracket? I would say no, but I just want to throw it to you as well. Is it fair to reduce a man to what he earns?
Um. Who's doing the reduction?
The partner. We can say partner, we can also say family members. Sometimes that happens as well, They were like, we
Hmm.
sent you to school to go and do XYZ, and you're not even making
Okay.
XYZ.
Now
We know
this
those
one
stories.
is quite tricky, right? Because
Hmm.
a lot of the times, right, expect we know that people are capable of achieving a certain level. For example, you have maybe uh, Josh's partner recognizes his potential that you could be better, right? But you're not applying yourself. You're not, doing. Uh,
He's a sales assistant. Why is she comparing him to a finance guy?
but another thing I would say to Josh is
Hmm.
it's a very, very good thing to have a little bit of understanding of statistics and
Hmm.
some just do probabilities and think
Hmm.
about. I know the go-to would be to compare yourself to people that are better than you. For most people, they would look up to
He's not the one comparing himself. He
exactly.
just come across all these videos and things that are telling him, basically saying that you're not doing enough, you're not doing well, blah blah blah. And his girlfriend was comparing him. He was fine originally until he started watching all this content and started like listening, watching those content, and then hearing his girlfriend kind of like confirm it, made him kind of like lose his perspective, because he was all right, he's doing okay.
Yeah.
relatively okay. He can take care of his own responsibilities, but just now it's like it's no, he doesn't see himself as a high value man because he can't do the things that high value men in quotes do.
Then, which is what I'm saying. He needs to go back to the drawing board and then
Hmm.
look at the
How he can become a high value man.
not just. I feel like already he's a high value man, but
Hmm.
the problem is that he is looking at it from the wrong angle, right? So
Okay.
if he were to probably do a statistics on, you know, just around the world, because sometimes, and think about people within his age range, that have attained a similar status to the current level he is. What he
Hmm.
would find is that there is a very, very high probability that he's even in the top brackets, right? A
Hmm.
lot of the times people look up to, these so-called successful people that are in, actually those people skew the average because they're,
Hmm.
you can imagine when you have two people, right? And one person earns 1 million a year, for example, and the other person earns 50,000 in a year.
Hmm.
Now, the statistics will show that the average for those two people is around 525,000 in a year.
Hmm.
So, if you're looking towards the average, then and you're somebody that is earning 50, you're thinking, I'm way below the average. But in the
Hmm.
real sense, there's only a few people that even hovers around that average point, right? So what you
Hmm.
should be
Yeah.
looking at is probably how many people falls within that, maybe lower quartile or thereabouts. So, and when you
Hmm.
think about it, can you provide the basic necessities for yourself? If that's
Yeah.
the case, think about the millions upon millions of people that can't even do that. So that should give you a little bit of comfort to see that, okay, I'm doing a little bit well for
I'm
myself. And
relatively
then,
okay. Yeah.
but yeah, I think we need to, bring down those expectations that sometimes people just place unnecessarily on themselves by,
That's
looking
true.
at, this so-called made people or people who have an idea of what a man should be. I
Hmm.
don't think there should be any particular definition of what a man should
Hmm.
be. So I
Fair
think
enough.
if
No, I
that's the
agree.
case, then we shouldn't be expecting that, that this is the model, you know, of what you should build yourself to look like, because everybody is unique, everybody is different. So we should be more focused on what values that we can
Hmm.
bring to the world around us, not just in monetary terms, but in other aspects, socio-economic, emotional, and so many other aspects. I think that's what really matters, I would say. So yeah.
No, no, I agree. I think you put the 2 points together because yeah, some people it's nice that they like make all this money. It's nice that they measure their own um success by result. It gives them pride and purpose. But at the other hand, as well, it's also nice to be able to show care by providing and meeting your own everyday needs as well,
Yeah.
right? So there's a fine balance between both, and I think the only thing that matters is that you are able to take care of yourself because that's the main thing in this life, and your mental health is in a good place. And then
Oh,
as we
also
still
on that as well, even if,
yeah.
because sometimes for some reasons we are not able to take off ourselves, right? So
Hmm.
not for lack of trying, but because life just throws curveballs at you and you're unable to do that. And that should be also acceptable, as it is part of the human experience, and we shouldn't just necessarily have to downplay that. Oh, okay, this person is unable to take care of themselves, because i I can just reflect and think back to some people that we have, and if I mention this, there's always this person that comes to mind, maybe some member of the family that, in your own words, they basically constitute a nuisance. When you think about it, it's like this person is not hardworking, this person is not, we
Yeah.
have at some point thought about it in a way that and a lot of the time what we are doing is we're looking at that person through our own lens, and we forget that everybody's experience is different. I too has once fallen into that trap of saying, okay, maybe this person is not doing well. I mean, you should at this age be able to at least, take care of
Mhm.
yourself and so on. But sometimes it's not that they don't want to, it's just that they just don't know how to. So again, I think we should also embrace the fact that that is also part of the human experience as well. So I'm just thinking, but yeah.
No, no, I agree with you. And with that, let's just slowly wind down one main question, like what to shift the standard, shifting
Okay.
standard section. What are some ways that women, men, friends, or society can affirm men's value outside of their earning? For me, I would just say, for me, I'll start by saying, like, they should celebrate people's effort.
Yeah.
They should respect, compliment people that are available for their friends, available for their families, and things like that. Those are the two. That is a way to affirm their value. They're valuable by being present. They're valuable by trying.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to be better. So that should be celebrated, not being put down and say you're not making X amount of money, so you are not yet a man, type of thing.
Yeah. Most certainly. Yeah, another thing I also think might also be good to think about would be other aspect things like, empathy. I know we touched on it some a long time ago, over a year ago, but yeah, things like empathy, things like, emotional intelligence, those are things that we should be thinking about, and we should be looking for people to cultivate or learn how to or build up themselves in that aspect. Also,
Yeah.
having that balance in terms of being there for your family, even if it's not financially, you're there. You're somebody that can be relied on in terms of having that conversation. So those are also, I think, important aspect that we need to also look into as well. And also, not just that, a lot of the times, again, the roles of men in the household, we mentioned something like this earlier on, it's also changing, so it's not just about providing the finances, is
Yeah.
doing other important things like looking after the kids, helping with the household chores, and
Hmm.
making life for your partner as easy as it can get. So that way, you're also offering values that are not just tied to how much money you bring into the family, or how much you know cash you can throw on a problem. But yeah, being there physically, being there, being able to provide support, and being someone
Hmm.
that can be relied on is also another crucial aspect, I would say.
Fair enough. That leads us nicely to my two would rather questions for this episode. And the first one is, would you rather have enough to provide constantly? Sorry, scrap that. Would you rather have enough to provide but constantly feel like you're not doing enough, or feel fulfilled with what you earn but be judged as average? I'll say it again. Would you rather have enough to provide but constantly feel like you're not doing enough, or feel fulfilled with what you earn but be judged as average? Which situation would you rather be
I think
in?
I would feel fulfilled with what I earn and be judged as poor, not
Hmm.
even average. I don't care if you judge me as average or judge
Hmm.
me as, excellent, right? I
Yes.
think what matters is I should be fulfilled in what I'm doing. So if it's been poor, then let it be. If it's been average, then let it be. So, but I want to attain that, fulfillment within myself without that external validation. So I would say yes, that one.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I don't want to keep constantly feel like I'm not doing enough, even though I have enough. That is a bad place to be in.
Yeah.
I know that some people don't mind that. They're very, very capitalistic in nature. I'm not judging those people. You do you, boo boo, as they say. But I want to be fulfilled. I want to be calm and relaxed. And last, would you rather for the episode is: would you rather be judged for not having enough money, or be loved only because you do?
Whew. Now this one is a tricky one. Judged for not having enough money,
Mm-hmm.
or beloved
only because you have money.
Ah, no, no, I don't. It just feels that's not genuine, right? To be loved
Yeah.
because you have money. But at the same time, if I have money and I'm loved, that means that I am impacting people financially. So they love me because of that. So
Yeah, remember my friend Tunde, he was making money. As soon as he lost the money, all of that disappeared.
yeah. No, I'm not really too concerned about the being loved part, but I just like the
Mm.
fact that I can have
Okay, that's the way you
enough
switch it. Okay, I
to
understand. Yeah.
provide. So
Mm.
which is why I'm living.
You're justifying your love for money. No problem. I
Yeah,
see.
so let me just leave that way for the now.
All right. No, no. I don't want to be judged for not having enough money. I'd rather be loved. Yeah, let me have enough money. Hate on me because I have money, no problem. I think it's also quite contradictory with what we're saying, but at the
Yeah,
same time, it's the reality of things. So in closing, being financially stable is good, being wealthy, great, but being seen, being valued for your mind, for your heart, for your presence is what sustains a man. And any system that reduces men to wallets, ATM, or career ladders, that system is broken.
yeah,
Career ladders, that system is broken. So whether you are Tunde or Josh or someone who loves one of them, here's the challenge. Can we value men as people, not as paychecks? And to the men, if money disappeared from your life today, what part of your manhood do you fear will disappear with it? I'll leave you to think about that. This has been ScatterYarn Podcast. I want to say thank you to Dr. Morris
thank
for
you
his
for having
contributions
me.
today and for joining us. And as usual, until the next episode where we're discussing the image of being a man, please stay safe, stay curious, question everything,
Question.
and use your brain. Let's hear from